This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
I call to order this regular meeting of the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors on this Tuesday, December the 3rd. Supervisors, please rise for honoring the flag and a moment of reflection by Supervisor Knight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we sit down?
Thank you for your indulgence.
In this holiday season, I thought I'd put out a few thoughts on neighborliness and what perhaps the county board can do to promote neighborliness. At the last meeting of the Planning and Development Committee, there were quite a few folks from the town of Clear Creek there who were concerned that they may be getting a wind turbine project in their township. They may be neighbors in the near future to 40 to 70 500-foot high wind turbines. They had a variety of worries, but among them was that this might pit neighbor against neighbor. As some neighbors install turbines, maybe they would appreciate the city's steady source of income if they're farming and preyed at the vagaries of milk prices and corn prices. Well, right next door to them may be someone who didn't want a turbine at all. I think we can do a little bit as a county board to maybe not completely ameliorate this, but we can maybe help a little bit by, one thing we could do is have the maximum setback allowed under the Public Service Commission of a turbine to a house. And the other thing we could do is perhaps negotiate some kind of quality of life payment to the people who did not have turbines on their property generating income, but who had put up with the turbines anyways, the nearby neighbors. Closer to where I live, there's a similar issue with the landfill. I didn't realize until this past year what a hot issue this was in the town of Seymour. I live 3 miles from the landfill, and other than the vultures going over my roof on summer days, I really am not affected much by it. But the people who live within a 1 mile radius of the landfill have a variety of grievances. Right now, we are in the process, or at least a special committee is in the process of negotiating terms for landfill expansion. This will be the 4th expansion of that landfill. A week or two ago, they gave their initial proposal to Advanced Disposal, the company that operates it. It had some good things in it, and particularly protecting those living near the landfill. It had an effort to protect property rights. If you couldn't sell your house in half a year, you would be compensated at the fair market value. But there were a lot of things it did not have that I thought could have done better for the people living within a 1 mile radius of the landfill. And I hope as the negotiation process continues that the committee at least may consider some kind of quality of life compensation too for people living near the landfill who have to put up with the seagull poop and the smell and the dust and things. There is a hearing on this coming up in January 17th. We're all invited. But anyways, I thought I'd conclude with a quotation on neighborliness from that great American philosopher and expert on neighbors, Mr. Rogers. All of us at one time or another need help. Whether we're giving or receiving help, each of us has something valuable to bring to the world. That's one of the things that connects us as neighbors.
Thank you. Tonight's meeting will be broadcast on Valley Media Works Charter Channel 994 on Thursday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. following the meeting, WFRP-LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and indicate your presence. Thank you. We have 25 members present. We have quorum. The next item on our agenda is approval of the Journal of Proceedings of November the 5th, 2019. Motion by Supervisor Leary, second by Supervisor Beckfield. Any additions, deletions, corrections to the Journal of Proceedings? I see none. All in favor of approving the Journal of Proceedings, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. It is unanimous. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment. We have 7 persons tonight who've indicated they wish to speak. I'm going to call them up one by one. Each person has 3 minutes for comment. I will ask the person following that individual to be ready at the side here. First speaker is Michael Lindsay, followed by Susan Smith.
You're Nick? Hi, I'm Mike Lindsay, or more formally, Dr. Michael Lindsay, and because I have sent to all of you on the board some thoughts that I have about school choice, I won't repeat those here, but rather I'd like to make some other kinds of remarks for you to know. First and foremost, though, I want all of you on the board and everyone else here to know that in my various writings to the letters to the editor, I have supported private education, and I do strongly support private schools as well as public schools. What I object to and what I'm objecting to here is the transfer of funds from public schools to private schools that was done legislatively without public input over a period of years, of budget years. So with that, I want to make some continuing remarks. There are some very desirable goals in the proposed proclamation that you've received and will be voting on and discussing tonight, but what is missing is the connection and clarification of what is meant by school choice. As it stands in the proposed proclamation, community members might easily misinterpret choice as being between sending their children to North or Memorial, for example. Explaining what school choice and parental choice mean not only in Wisconsin but nationally gives a great opportunity for our local media networks to inform people about what choice really means, including its relation to vouchers, because often school choice programs are referred to as voucher programs. Wisconsin currently has 3 area-based parental choice programs: in Milwaukee that began in 1989, Racine in 2011, and the rest of the state in 2013, with a special needs program introduced in 2017. There are a total of 317 schools in these 3 programs in 2019-20, with 43,450 voucher students, and that's 56.7% of all students enrolled in these schools. These are not numbers that'll be on your final exam, but they illustrate the breadth of the program in question. Voucher payments per student in kindergarten through 8th grade have increased from the statewide program from $6,400 in 2013-14 to $8,000 in the current year, and high school per student from $6,400 in the beginning year 2013 to almost $8,700 in 2019-20. It's expensive. The special needs program is over $12,000 per student. An economist, Martin Carnoy, wrote back in February 2017 for the Economic Policy Institute that vouchers are advanced under the rubric of school choice. And I do that only quote that I'll have tonight because of that connection. Vouchers are equated with school choice or proposed with that name of school choice. This is the theory that giving parents more choices regarding where to educate their children creates competition and thus improves low-performing schools. But there's no solid evidence that school choice is either educationally sound or cost-effective. And there, too, I could cite all kinds of scholars who've looked into the question, but I won't. I'll give you a break there. Advocates for school choice have exclaimed over the increased funds for education in the new 2019-21 state budget, but that increase goes nowhere toward recovering the $1 billion that were cut to education in our 2010-11 budget, and that was followed by a cut of another $800 million in 2013-15. We're not catching up, even though some people are so proud that we've increased the budget for education.
Dr. Lindsay, excuse me.
I'm done?
Yes.
And with that, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Is there a chance for questions, or would that come later if
No,
anybody
we don't
wants
do
to
that.
ask? You don't do that? Okay, then that's easy.
Thank
No
you for
final
your
exam
comment.
either.
So next is Susan Smith, followed by Dr. Carol Craig.
Good evening. Thank you for your time on this issue. I'm also here in regards to the proclamation for the School Choice Week. As a former public school teacher, I strongly believe in a parent's right to choose between sending their child to a public versus a private school. A parent can choose a private religious school which aligns with their religious beliefs, but that is their choice. However, I also believe in taxpayers' choices. But in parental school choice or the voucher programs, that choice for taxpayers in Wisconsin has been denied. Wisconsin taxpayers have no choice but to have their tax dollars divided among a guaranteed amount per pupil for their voucher reimbursement before the remainder of funds is allotted for public schools, without a guaranteed dollar amount going to those public school students. Keep in mind, our tax dollars are dispersed on a statewide basis, so taxes paid in Eau Claire County go also to the Milwaukee, Racine, and statewide voucher programs. Wisconsin taxpayers had no choice during the last school year, in which $11.8 million of our tax money went to support schools in the La Crosse Diocese alone. Wisconsin taxpayers have had no choice since 2013, when private religious schools in Eau Claire alone were given almost $5 million. And during that same time frame, public schools in Eau Claire County had a reduction in funding of over $7 million. Wisconsin taxpayers have no choice that since the inception of the 3 voucher choice programs, at the end of the current school year, $3 billion with a B will have been stripped from public schools and given to private and often religious schools statewide. This occurs whether or not there are voucher schools in your district. As a female taxpayer, I have no choice that my tax dollars frequently are given to schools where, as a part of their religious teaching, women are second-class citizens, often without voting rights on church decisions. And you're being asked to honor that. I question the purpose of this proclamation. I am unaware of other proclamations that this board has ever made. Why set aside a week to honor the suppression of taxpayer rights in Wisconsin? Tonight, you're considering a proclamation regarding school choice. Please consider who is actually given a choice in these programs, not the Wisconsin taxpayers. I urge you to vote no on this proclamation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Dr. Carol Craig, followed by Chris Hombook-Boyle.
This is a complex issue. I would challenge anybody to remember many of the facts that you've heard just now. Suffice to say that after 21 years on the school board, the idea of public school financing still is really mind-numbing. It really is. So I'm going to approach this in a little different way for you. I would want you to think about this. Would any of you, as county board supervisors, support a proclamation that provided private, for-profit sheriff services in Eau Claire County in direct competition to the public mandated sheriff services provided by the Eau Claire County, and in so doing, pay for these private choice services out of your county budget? Let me just repeat that again, because I think this goes to the heart of what we're talking about here. Would any of you support a proclamation that provided private, for-profit sheriff services here in Eau Claire County in direct competition to the services that Eau Claire County is currently providing, and in so doing, pay for these private choice services out of your county budget? If the answer to that is no, then the answer to this proclamation must also be no, because it's the same game. It's the exact same game. This proclamation, without any mention of the financial impact of choice schools, advertises and supports private and oftentimes for-profit schools, and in so doing, supports paying for these choice private schools for money taken right out of the Eau Claire School District budget, $1.8 million last year, right out of our budget with no choice, no oversight, no opportunity to speak to it. As a past member of the Eau Claire School Board, I find this proclamation offensive, and I find it counterproductive to providing quality public services in Eau Claire County. City Council, County Board, and school district governing bodies in Eau Claire have worked together for years in promoting high-quality public services. This county was the first to establish the shared service concept, and several of our members on the board have served on that. Elected officials are elected to promote the public good. This resolution sabotages the public good for the sake of private interests. Again, I will ask you, if any of you would vote against a proclamation that provided private for-profit sheriff services in direct competition with Eau Claire County and said it would be okay to take that out of your county budget, if you would support that, then support this. But if you don't, you cannot support this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Chris Homburg-Boyle, followed by Eleanor Wolfe.
Good evening, everyone. As a long-time public school educator and school board member, I have lived 40 years of my tenure almost 40 years of it, in defunding of public schools. Way back to 1993, when the revenue caps went in, and Eau Claire's revenue caps, we didn't levy to the max at the time. Uniroyal was kind of having a hard time, and so we tried to help our taxpayers by not doing that. Because we didn't levy to the max back in 1993, we have been held to that lower amount all along. So you can see how the funding system has promoted the have and the have-not school districts. And we come back to you time and time again with referendums to fund our schools. I spent 24 hours a day in 2016 for almost a year trying to get a referendum passed. That takes people and their jobs for kids away to try to fund our schools. I say fund by referendum. So I'm thrilled tonight to be here to listen to what people are coming here to support our schools. That to me is the lights getting bigger on what this means. I certainly respect and I certainly support our private schools in Eau Claire. They're good and they've been great partners, and we have a 4K program that we do collaboratively. But people have to understand school funding and its complexities. So Dr. Lindsay talked. Many people have said things that I would like to say, so I'm just going to pull out a couple things. One is the transparency of all of this and shining a light on it. I was part of writing a bill about putting the amount for vouchers on your tax bill so that the money that's pulled and it's all under public schools. You don't have an awareness of the millions of our budget that go to fund our private schools. I think that the taxpayers should be aware of that. And it's never the parental choice statewide program and the Racine program were all done in a biennium budget. It was never debated or voted on. And I don't think that's transparent for our taxpayers. Another thing I would like to say is that we spent a year and a half with a Blue Ribbon Commission headed up by Senator Luther Olson and Representative Joel Kitchens, both Republicans on that committee. And the Wisconsin Public Education Network kept data from every single hearing on the concerns of the public school districts that testified, and there were hundreds and hundreds. There's 421 of them. And there were 5 or 6 things that came out for recommendations to help our public schools, and every one of those were pulled from the budget. So the one that we can talk about tonight was a moratorium on vouchers and non-district independent charters, that we pull back and really look at what they're doing. Okay, and quickly, we have a video because they've made school funding so amazingly complex that people have a hard time understanding it, me included, and I've been embroiled in this for a long time. Go to YouTube and pull up Road to Referendum. We did a documentary in 2016 for our referendum. They thought we could do it quick, but it's an hour and 3 minutes long in order for you to really understand the complexity. We are third in the pecking order for funding now in the state of Wisconsin. First comes independent charter schools, second the vouchers, and the money that's left over is divided between 421 school districts, and that's not equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Eleanor Wolfe, followed by Liz Spencer.
Eleanor Wolfe, and I live at 1810 Birch Street in Eau Claire, and so much of this is repetition because we've had the people in the know, the people that were the head of our school boards, and they've talked about finance, and that's an important, very important, critical piece of information. But I just want to dwell on one thing that hasn't been brought up and emphasized, that this public taxpayer money that's going to religious schools, and it goes to schools that teach religion, and that's the voucher system. And it was established because the Constitution does not allow taxpayer money to go directly to religious schools. So it goes to the parents, but then it goes to religious schools. And it's a clever way to work around the religious issue in the Constitution. Now, I think that parents have a right to choose the school they want. If they want to put their kids in public schools or in private schools, then let them pay for it, or let the churches pay for it, as they did up to 2015. So we don't need to change that system. They can very well afford to do what they did up until 2015. So I urge supervisors to take a stand against this undemocratic voucher system by voting no on the School Choice Week proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Liz Spencer, followed by Libby Stupak.
Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I personally could not hear anything that anybody said in the back there. Is your microphone system even on for the rest of you? I do not have a big voice. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes, no? Oh, okay, maybe it's just, I did have a hearing test. I passed it. So, all right, I'll do my best, okay, to speak loudly. All right, my name's Elizabeth Spencer. I live in the city of Eau Claire. I'm the proud parent of 2 children who attended Eau Claire Public Schools, and even prouder of two grandchildren now in Eau Claire Public Schools. My husband and I volunteer several days a week at an Eau Claire Public School, Flynn School, which we adore. So I'd like to address the proposed resolution for proclaiming Eau Claire County School Choice Week. On the surface, this looks like a really good idea. Who among us is not in favor of high-quality, effective education and high-quality professional teachers? Anybody? However, school choice is a code word for voucher schools, most of which are religious in nature, that are siphoning off necessary funds from our public schools. I do not want my taxpayer dollars to pay for private religious voucher schools. A fundamental premise of our national Constitution is the separation of church and state. Our state Constitution declares the right for pre-K to 12 education for all children. Public dollars need to go to public schools that are accountable to the public who pays for them. Taxpayers are not obligated by the state constitution to fund private schools. Private schools do have a choice. Their choice is to choose the children who attend. They are not obligated to accept all children who want to come to that private school. In addition, there is no data to support that taxpayer-supported private schools provide a superior education to public schools. Revenue caps and levy limits have forced our public schools to go to referendums for both infrastructure and operational expenses. Our public schools, who are required again to take all children, are heavily underfunded. The burden to pay for private education has shifted from income taxes to property taxes, which puts a burden on the local level. Not only that, the state limits the amount that local governments can levy to fund their public education. As a result, this state funding formula, as a previous speaker said, is extremely complicated. If you want to be confused, try to figure it out. It is unfair and complicated, and it especially is Eau Claire as a result of what happened in 1993 or whatever to our public schools. If the county board wants to make a proclamation about education, I would suggest instead that the board address the current system for funding local public school districts who are desperately doing more with less as a result of a net loss. I'll repeat that, a net loss, in spite of looking like through the media that there was an increase in public education, that there was a net loss over the last 8 or 9 years. Please vote no on this proclamation for Eau Claire County School Choice Week. This proposed proclamation gives the wrong message in terms of supporting private, mostly religious voucher schools. And thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Libby Stupak. I forgot to mention or to request that you identify yourself by your residence and so on, by name and residence, if you would.
Okay. Libby Stupak, City of Eau Claire. And, pardon?
Pull the mic down a little bit. Just pull it.
Yes,
Pull it down? Okay.
Yeah, there.
And I'm also here to speak about the proclamation for School Choice Week. And I agree that the children in Eau Claire should have access to the highest quality education possible. However, this particular issue is not as simple as this proclamation looks at face value, as others have already said. Public schools are funded by the government, and they must meet certain guidelines and are free to all children that attend. Private schools can choose which students are accepted, and therefore it's possible that they may discriminate. By acceptance of this proclamation, is this what we want to celebrate? Using tax dollars to pay for private schools that subscribe to a particular faith is a violation of the constitutional separation of church and state. By acceptance of this proclamation, do we really want to celebrate that? So this is an issue that's very complex, and the decision to celebrate school choice should not be taken lightly, and I urge the county board to not accept this proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no other names of persons wishing to speak. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to speak? Any other member? Yes, please come forward and identify yourself by name and residence.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Robert Vunyovsky, and I live in town. I live at 1906 Fenwick, and my daughter attends South Middle School. She loves it there. And I would just, one observation, and many of the details have been clarified with the previous speakers, just detailing things that aren't often discussed with respect to educational funding. And I would just like everyone to consider that if this proclamation were to pass, that the transparency of how the funds are placed with regards to education, if that is clarified during this week of during the week, that's proposed. If there's transparency with respect to where money is coming from and where it is going, if that's included in the propaganda that's disseminated, I'd appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to speak? Any other person? Last call. Our public comment period is now at a close. Next item on our agenda is oral reports, beginning with an update on the 2020 Farm Technology Days. Mr. Mark Hagedorn, Mr. John Leary, and Mr. Bob Panzer. One at a time.
He's my tech guy. I'm the IT guy, yeah.
Mark, raise the microphone a little bit. There you go.
We'll get you all set up. Check, check.
Is it working? No?
I probably don't need a microphone. Bob, John. Okay. Hi, I'm John Leary. I am the chair of Farm Technology Days. I'm a resident of Eau Claire, if that's important.
It is.
The journey we began about.
Even though they can probably hear you, can you just speak in the mic?
The journey we're on began in 2017 when the county board appropriated funds to back a bid for Eau Claire County to host the 2020 Farm Technology Days. Leading up that effort was Mark Hagedorn, who formerly was the Eau Claire Extension agent for Eau Claire County. He's since moved on to a statewide role, but he's still, through the graces of UW Extension, offering some of his support and time to help us out. I also have Bob Panzer, who's the vice chair of our committee. He's a retired ag banker and also a farmer. So what we want to do is give you a brief overview of what we've accomplished in the last couple of years. We've got our show coming up in 2020. We've got a brief video, and then we'll do a PowerPoint, and then we'll show you some maps as to the location and give you some background on what the show is going to look like.
We are the world's largest grower and processor of horseradish, founded right here in 1929, almost 90 years ago, by my great-grandfather, Ellis Hunsinger. He discovered that Wisconsin has all the best conditions for the best possible horseradish. He was able to sell the horseradish product through the winter months, support his family. We are the world's largest grower and processor of horseradish, founded right here in 1929, almost 90 years ago, by my great-grandfather, Ellis Hunsinger. He discovered that Wisconsin has all the best conditions for the best possible horseradish. He was able to sell the horseradish product through the winter months, support his family, and it really became the real lightning rod as sales soared throughout the nation.
Horseradish harvesting and planting is a very labor-intensive crop. It's a crop that we plant in the spring and the fall. So we have 2 harvest seasons, and it's in the ground approximately 1 year. So if we plant in the spring, we harvest the next spring. If we plant in the fall, we harvest the next fall. So it's a 2-crop per year crop. At the farm here on Highway 37, we have several sheds here for storing machinery, but the main building here is for sorting horseradish. In the sorting shed here, we'll have field-run horseradish coming in to the building. They sort the horseradish, they take the seed stock, and then the other root that is not used for seed stock goes into another conveyor, trash goes out one conveyor, and the other conveyor is used for transporting the horseradish into cold storage. Here at Silver Spring, we're able to create a farm-to-table process by processing our horseradish in our local farms here in west central Wisconsin as well as northern Minnesota. We'll bring up fresh horseradish to our processing plant here, and we'll process it within 24 hours. From there, it'll go right into the cooler and distribute it worldwide right to your table. There are a lot of uses for horseradish. Today, a lot of people are traditionally use it on their prime rib. They'll mix it into mashed potatoes. They'll make their own cocktail sauce using ketchup. One thing that we're really pushing towards now is using, horseradish and Bloody Marys, trying to accommodate more of that younger generation. But to be honest with you, there's a ton of things you can use it for, and we're still learning every day.
Today, we produce over 100 million pounds of different products a year. Not just horseradish, but mustard and cocktail sauce and a whole variety of other things. We're over 300 employees and continuing to grow.
Our products here at Silver Spring are distributed nationally, but we really take pride in our local distribution channels. We use all our local grocery stores, meat markets to really get our name out there. From there, we develop a great supply chain throughout the country to develop and distribute our products countrywide.
What it means for me to see my children and our family growing up in the farming industry, in the community, being on this farm, is their opportunity to really appreciate, experience not only what it is to be involved in farming, but the history of their family and where this came from and the generations. That's pretty special.
I think hosting Farm Technology Days gives us an opportunity to tell our story, tell the history, showcase horseradish, but more importantly, we're going to have the opportunity to showcase agriculture from the area. We're really proud of being from Eau Claire, and we're proud of our heritage, and we're just happy to be able to host this show.
We've been deeply rooted in the community since 1929. It's a great opportunity for us, the business and the family, to showcase the farmland that's been so good to this organization and really show what farming does for the economy around Eau Claire and the Wisconsin area.
So I'm looking forward to Farm Technology Days because this is an opportunity for people that are curious about farming, involved in farming, or know nothing about farming to come and experience everything to do with it. And the greatest gift is going to be what we can provide for the children to get them excited, because the children are our future. I encourage those in the community to come out, find out where your food comes from, get excited about farming.
I'm really looking forward to hosting Farm Technology Days. I'm really excited to show people about horseradish, and I'm excited to watch their face when they try it.
We're going to see big tractors. You're going to see big field demos. See you there. I'll see you there.
We also have a short PowerPoint to show you some more information and some maps and other information about our show. I think most of you received a handout which also has some facts about the show. Obviously, it's next summer here in Eau Claire.
All you got to do is hit the down button. I'll let you have this
microphone,
space, and you can use the microphone.
So we've got a vision statement and a mission. We want to promote the farm economy and in Eau Claire and the surrounding counties, and get people excited about farming, and also put on a good education for our farmers. A lot of our farmers are struggling. Extension is rolling out a dairy, some dairy components to help our dairy farmers with some new procedures. And so we're excited about that. We're also going to have other education components that help out our farmers. And in addition, we're going to try to expose the community at large and our more urban populations in Eau Claire County to learn about where our food comes from. There's a little bit of information. We expect hopefully 40 to 60,000 visitors. The economic impact will be high. This is the largest moving farm show in the country. It moves from county to county throughout Wisconsin each year. There's a little map The last show in our immediate area was Barron County 6 years ago. We haven't had it in Eau Claire County since 1992, so we're excited that it's coming back to Eau Claire. That's a picture of our host family. Some of you may know the story of Nancy Bartouche, who unfortunately had a family tragedy when she was a young girl, and her parents passed away. We're the founders of Hunsinger Farms, and so we're also going to have education about succession planning. She had a tough struggle continuing the business and helping it grow into what it is today. There's some statistics about Hunsinger Farms itself. It is the largest producer of horseradish in the world. 8 million pounds grown annually. Horseradish has a heavy use of soil, so it's a 5 to 7 year crop rotation. So you need a good deal of acreage to rotate your crops. There's a picture of our processing facility for our host farm, and then the host farm itself. And you can see down at the bottom of the right-hand picture is the original homestead. There's a site map. If you look in the upper right corner, that's the clover leaf for 94 and 37. The host farm site is in the upper right corner near there. And then we're going to have field demonstrations in the big parcel to the left. And then down at the bottom of the screen is where we're going to have a tent city. That's about 3 miles from the highway. There's our stellar executive committee, all volunteers in Eau Claire County. A little bit you may not be aware, but hopefully you'll learn more through the show and other information. But ag has a huge impact on the Eau Claire County and surrounding areas economy. 4,641 jobs, over $1 billion in economic activity. You can see the taxes paid by our farms. It's a little gift item that we're promoting. We also have benches that businesses can buy. They'd be at the show, and then they can take them to their businesses or to their homes. We're entering the modern age. You may not realize it with the technology show we put on here today, but we've got people who are handling that and getting us on Facebook and getting us good media coverage. This is Wood County 2018. You can see they had a successful show. They had good weather, but they had a ton of community support, and we're looking for that in Eau Claire County. And we've had outstanding participation and responses from not only the ag community, but from the city community so far in our businesses. More pictures of Wood County 2 years ago. We'll have a component of vintage tractors, heritage tractors, and other farm equipment. You have the maps, Mark? Yep.
This group will correspond with what was sent out to you electronically. So. There you go.
Scroll down.
Yep, just use the down key.
These are just a few more statistics on the impact of agriculture in Eau Claire County. Large economic impact. One thing we are concerned about is if you look at one of these statistics, this is based on 2017. Approximately 30% of our farmers are 65 and older. So we have a huge challenge to transition that economic impact to the next generation. And hopefully the educational components and the support of the community will help that transition, and you can find out where your food comes from and hopefully keep supporting our farm economy. Again, there's the map that outlines what's going to be planted for the field demonstrations. In addition, Hunsinger Farms just sent out a press release today. They're going to embark on a huge renewable energy with solar panels being installed at the farm. So that will be also an opportunity for education for other ag businesses and for the general public as well about solar energy. We'll also have field demonstrations where various manufacturers will be able to chop the rye and the alfalfa. That's a map of our tent city. The middle is the tent city. On both sides is the parking. Mitchell Road is there on the top of the map, and then Highway 37 runs to the left side of the map. Here's a blow-up of the current version of Tent City. The highlights are going to be Innovation Square in the middle. There's some information in your packet about that. We've added a cheese producer as well as our apple producers, our bean producers, Horseradish, and we also have aquaponics farm, which has salmon and greens. So that's a new technology that's becoming more prevalent in the area, and we're gonna highlight that. We got an education tent for the youth. We've got UW Extension tents on the perimeter. We're gonna have drive-in rides for tractors, for lawn tractors. We've got a horse who's ready to. The equine is going to be up in the upper left corner there. So we've got a candidate for that. We'll have ag. We'll have beef cattle, and a variety of other things. So we hope we all can come out and enjoy the show. We're putting together sponsorships. We've been successful so far, but we're continuing to do that. And we are grateful for the support of the county to get us started. Hopefully we'll put on a good show, and we'll be happy to come back before the show, a month or so before, and give you an update as to where we are.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is County Administrator updates by Administrator Schaaf.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Okay,
thank you. Very briefly, I have a few slides. I will also send the slides to you, and I will take just a very few moments to talk a little bit about the OE process. You as a board have heard about this process. Our department heads are currently going through the organizational effectiveness process. The key to this process is really about the team coming together and gaining agreement on how we will work collaboratively to solve problems. And we're well underway in our work. The Committee on Administration is going to be discussing how we will involve the board in this work in the January session, so that's something that you can look forward to as well. The process itself is systematic and systemic, so the goal is to really look at both of those aspects of the identified area. And so we are identifying an effectiveness model that we are going to be working on, and it's going to be one that involves the entire organization. And then as a team, everyone has input and everyone has the opportunity to share in those meetings. And then we go through it and we develop a step-by-step approach. And along with that, the idea is that we don't do this a once and done. It becomes a way that we can continue to work as a team toward continuous improvement, process improvement within our organization. It uses what's called the DAPIM model, and you see the different components of it up on the screen with a very brief definition of what each of those components is. There's also a quick flywheel. It shows that once you get going with this, after you define what you're going to work on, do the assessment, do the planning and the implementation, you do the monitoring, and then it continues to feed itself, and it continues to be a part of the cycle that you go through as an organization to continue your improvement. And what is included in this are slides that actually identify in a little more detail what each step of that process is. And so I'm not going to go through each of those slides. I'm going to be sending them to you for you to review. If you have further questions, we would be happy to share any information about the process itself. Again, it's a very defined process. Facilitators lead the group through the work. Each of the members in the group has opportunity to give voice to what it is they're thinking, feeling, what their understanding is, so that we get to the point where we have shared agreement around a number of different issues. It's a very inclusive process, and it is setting the stage for the work that we're going to be doing this coming year in 2020, when the new board is seated, on the strategic plan and involving our community partners and our stakeholders in determining the future of the work that we will do within the county and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. You have before you in your packet the written reports, the 2019 contingency report from the Finance Department, and the October 2019 payments over $10,000, also from the Finance Department. Are there any questions about the written reports? Questions? Oh, excuse me. Supervisor Bates. Oh, you must have leaned on your pad.
I only want to say a few words at the end of the Farm Technology Day presentation.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry.
And thank the individuals that came to do that for us, and compliment our individual, Mark Hagedorn, for his leadership, because the process never would have started without him. And he will have 15% of his time dedicated to follow through with this program. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Once again, is there anyone who has a question about the written reports? Okay, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is presentation of petitions, claims, and communications, beginning with proclamation proclaiming Eau Claire County School Choice Week. I'm asking the county clerk to read the proclamation first.
Proclaiming Eau Claire County School Choice Week. Whereas all children in Eau Claire County should have access to the highest quality education possible, and whereas Eau Claire County recognizes the important role that an effective education plays in preparing all students in Eau Claire County to be successful adults, and whereas quality education is critically important to the economic vitality of Eau Claire County, and whereas Eau Claire County is home to a multitude of high-quality public and non-public schools from which parents can choose for their children, in addition to families who educate their children in the home. And whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhances the vibrancy of our community. And whereas Eau Claire County has many high-quality teaching professionals in all types of school settings who are committed to educating our children. And whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise awareness of the need for effective educational options. Now, therefore, the Chair, Nick Smyer of Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors, does proclaim January 26th through February 1st, 2020 as Eau Claire County School Choice Week, and calls for this observance to be attention to all citizens.
Any proclamation that we do comes forward to the board for full approval. So at this point, I ask for motion. Motion by Supervisor Chilson. Second? Second by Supervisor Beckfield. Supervisor Chilson, since you moved it, do you have any comment? Right here.
Sure, why not? I just listened to the clerk read it. It seems like it's a straightforward proclamation. I don't know why, in terms of some situations, that if some people wanted to have a different choice, that would be a bad thing. I unfortunately came late, so I didn't hear if there was any commentary prior to me speaking. Okay, well, all I can say is this, you know, there are benefits for the public school system for all of the kids that attend the private schools, because if they are in that district, the funding for those students does go to the public school system. So for those that are in that other education system, there is a benefit to it. And I wasn't exactly aware of it until when I made the decision for my sons who are attending Regis. I made the decision to open enroll at Altoona. As soon as my paperwork went through, I can assure you that my phone was blowing up from the Eau Claire School District wanting to know what they could do to get me to stay, and it really wasn't anything offensive to Eau Claire, it just was that Altoona made the most sense to me. But for my situation, I understood then that there were financial dollars tied to wherever my kids went to school with. And in some situations, you know what, for certain people, options might be the best thing. So I don't really see where this is the end of the world. For some other districts that don't have the quality education that we do, and just as a proclamation said, we have a lot of great choices here. There are a lot of good schools. There are some areas that aren't fortunate like that, and they don't have that choice. So a proclamation like this, encouraging this kind of action for some people in some areas for their kids, probably makes the most sense, and it is the right thing, and I think it's a good thing to support.
Thank you. Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some number of years ago, I wrote a report on voucher schools. At the time, voucher schools were specific to Milwaukee. But what I learned about voucher schools in writing that report was, number one, there was no requirement to publish performance data. So we never learned what kind of performance or what kind of success the voucher schools were having. Secondly, there was no requirement to accept disabled students. And I do know my kids went K-12 to Altoona, and I know that 10% of the general fund, Fund 10, goes straight into special needs education in addition to what comes in for specifically for special needs. So teaching disabled students is a big deal. But there was no requirement for voucher schools to accept disabled students. Third, there's no requirement to comply with any aspect of the IDEA, which again, it's still part of the children with disabilities, or having any special compensation. And third, there was no requirement by the voucher schools to hire certified teachers. So they could hire people who applied because they needed teachers. And the conclusion I reached when I wrote this report was that the voucher schools were, they were private schools, and it was prior, as I said, prior to the expansion, but they were presenting themselves as though they were some type of a bargain to the state, when in fact they were very detrimental to the state because they were siphoning off funds but not providing sufficient education to the students. It was shocking to me, and again, it was a long time ago, but as I've watched and continued to follow the whole logic of voucher schools, it's become shocking to me. I want to note that a voucher school is substantially different than a charter school, which does have to accept disabled students, does need to have certified teachers, and does need to have performance testing and performance evaluations. So charter schools are required to comply with the rules, whereas voucher schools, private schools, don't have any accountability. Therefore, I think that approving a proclamation to say that we agree with what we agree with school choice implies we're agreeing to send our kids to voucher schools. And I don't think that's what we want to do. We have an excellent school system, both in Altoona and in Eau Claire and in Fall Creek and in Augusta. All three locations are very good schools. They perform well. And I think we're sending the wrong message by claiming Eau Claire County School Choice Week because it implies we're supporting voucher schools with our taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Supervisor Cronk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you to everybody that came and spoke tonight. I really appreciate the insight and the input, one of whom actually taught my children, 18, 19, who's counting, I don't want to age myself, years ago. So I really appreciate the people that have had sort of the boots on the ground and the information brought forward for us to hear. I agree with Supervisor Pagonis for the reasons that she also just articulated, and I'll just say briefly, I had a lot of emails about this issue and not one was in support, so I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gatlin, followed by Supervisor Coffey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also do not support our board.
Try it again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Try pushing a button. Sorry. There you go.
Don't push it.
You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also do not support that our county board supports this proclamation. I don't think we should be giving recognition in any way to a movement that has had such negative effects on our public school system. There isn't enough money for a tandem school system, and I don't support especially money going to religious schools because of the separation of church and state. I don't think is being followed if public funds are funding that. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Moritz, followed by Supervisor Coffey. Supervisor Moritz.
Well, thank you. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and I hope this explains how I feel about this resolution. My father had an 8th grade education. After our farm sale in South Dakota, he moved us to Kansas City, Missouri for a job. We lived in a one-room apartment. To let you know how my father's plan went, my two sisters and parents slept on the bed. My brother and I slept on the floor in the closet. Then a nearby public high school offered a 3-week free class on Morse code. My father took it. He learned his dots and dashes. He went on and got a job at the railroad as a telegrapher. He liked to say he pulled us out of poverty and up to low income. The value of education never left my father. He encouraged his children to go to high school. All 5 of his children completed public high school, and then they all attended public universities. The 5 of us had 30 years of college between us. I firmly believe my family's path to the American dream was through the public school system. We need to protect this system for other disadvantaged families like mine was. I will be voting no on this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Coffey, followed by Supervisor Knight.
I too will vote no for this resolution. I was a public school teacher for about 10 years before starting to work for UW Extension, which is also a teaching position. And I just feel that as I worked those years, funding diminished more and more and more. And there's just no way to keep the education up to what it needs to be and keep teachers in this profession without funding. And I also really concur with all of the speakers tonight about how the lack of transparency of the money that has gone into private education and voucher systems. I bet if we walked the street and asked anyone publicly how much of their taxes go to private schools, they would have absolutely no idea. And to be honest, I'm not sure I do. So I just really think we have to vote no for this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Knight, followed by Supervisor Leary.
Yeah, I attended a private school through 8th grade. I think I got a good education. I could recite part of the Confiteor in Latin for you if you wanted to, but
I'm sure we'd all love to hear that.
Nuns were a little hard on me in the early years, maybe not hard enough. I had two sisters who went all the way through high school in a public school. I had a fourth sister, my youngest sister, Maggie, who had Down syndrome. At that time, there was no special needs program in parochial schools. She went to Madison Memorial, I think, through age 20, in what had to be a pretty expensive program, very high teacher to pupil ratio. She had a great time. My sister Kate homeschooled two kids, and they turned out okay. One's an attorney, one's an engineer. But I've seen cases in Rusk County where I don't think the kids were they were being homeschooled, and I don't think they were going to be going to any high school that required reading. And for full disclosure, I'm married to a public school teacher, a retired public school teacher. I'm going to be voting no on this. I don't necessarily disagree with the text in it. I think it's a little deceptive. I think school choice is synonymous with vouchers. I could say let's have a proclamation for pro-life and never mention abortion in it, but I think we know what is meant when someone says I'm pro-life. Similarly, I think we know what is meant when someone says I'm for school choice. I don't agree with diverting public funds to private schools. I frankly don't think my parents who sent their kids to private schools would have wanted to do it either. I think they wanted to send schools that taught their particular beliefs, and they didn't want any strings attached that might come or should come, frankly, with public funding.
Thank you. Supervisor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be not supporting this proclamation. I find it interesting, since I've been on the county board in 1996 forward, I don't ever remember a proclamation generating the kind of mail that we've received, as well as the fact that it's also not clear where it's coming from. And I like sunlight. I like everything out in the open. The other thing is, it struck me, my family, my great-great-great-grandfather and the family came to the United States, immigrated, because of the value of education. One of the reasons they moved from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin was because they did not have public schools at the time. He was an engineer working in the mines, but his children would not be able to get a public education, and he did not find that was satisfactory, so they moved to Wisconsin specifically for that. And so it's a very important thing, I think, to our basic freedom. So I hope you will not support this. And if we start getting a lot of this type of proclamation coming forward, I would hope that the administration committee can perhaps look at a little bit more in terms of finding out who and where and what these proclamations might be coming from. So that might guide us. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other requests to speak. Supervisors, please take in hand your keypads and vote on the proclamation.
Yes.
2 yes and 24 no. Therefore, the proclamation is defeated. Thank you. Next, on your agenda, you'll notice a rezoning request for the town of Brunswick from applicants Lisa and Dan Sommerfeld, which will be referred to a future meeting. Also, a rezoning request for the town of Union from Gene Amundson and Rio Land Surveying, which will also be referred to a future meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. The clerk has reminded me that we have a sign-up sheet for the moment of reflection. Some of you will remember how we do this. We'll pass around the sign-up sheet. Those of you who wish to volunteer for a moment of reflection, please sign up. Where is that pad?
Has it passed, you guys?
Is it already passed?
Is it? Oh, it's already at the end. Okay.
Oh, never mind. You've already. Okay. Just running to catch up here.
Yeah.
Next item on our agenda is first reading of ordinances by committees. The first is from the Committee on Administration, File 81.
To amend Section 2.04.030D of the Code, Rule 3, opening of meeting, and to amend Section 2.04.120A of the Code, Rule 12, standing committees.
Now, this is first reading. This will come back for second reading. Do you wish to have any explanation? We don't usually do it when it's referred. Okay. All right. Next.
If you like, but actually, what this is about is to change from when we had a budgetary process where the whole of the board dissolved into a committee of the whole. And this simply takes out the one element that is left in the ordinance that really is not applicable anymore. It'll be back at the next meeting.
I would add that it also clarifies that the chairperson would be an ex officio non-voting member of the standing committees, which we have always assumed to be the case, but is not the case. So this would rectify that situation. Yeah, I think that's it. So that will be referred then to next meeting. File number 77.
To amend Section 18.55.200 of the Code, Groundwater Protection Overlay District, Village of Fall Creek.
This item will also go to the next meeting for its second reading. We are now under item 10, reports of standing committees, commissions, and boards under 2.04.160, and second reading of ordinances, beginning with file 78.
Requesting the Wisconsin Legislature revise Chapter 8.14 to make filing fees consistent between the Clerk of Courts and the Register and Probate.
This is a resolution, therefore, the chair looks for a motion on this. Motion from Supervisor Beckfield, second from Supervisor Pagonis. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Supervisor Pagonis.
Our chair up until a few weeks ago was Supervisor Miller, and she has since resigned. So I think it was a coin toss between Supervisor Wilkie and me as to who would address this. The fact sheet is pretty much self-explanatory. Fees that are charged are statutory, and right now there's some confusion, certainly in smaller counties, but there's confusion that there are fees that the Clerk of Court charges for some things and fees that the Register and Probate charges for what appears to be the same thing, and those fees are different. So this is just a request to respond to the state and say, try to encourage the state to adjust the fees so that both the Clerk of Courts and the Register and Probate are similar. This is a point of discussion among the registers and probate across the state, and it was a big point during their annual meeting this year. They're looking to just sort of equalize things, and that's what this is about.
Thank you. I see no requests to speak. Therefore, supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 78. Supervisor Henning? Thank you. Supervisor Schroff-Nagel, welcome back. Do you wish to vote? Thank you.
26 yes.
26 yes, it is unanimous. Thank you. Next is file 71.
To amend Section 4.35.200 of the Code, overpayments and underpayments.
This is second reading. Therefore, explanation?
Motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. First motion. Supervisor Leary moves, Supervisor Dunning seconds. Excuse me, Supervisor Pagonis.
This is also self-explanatory. When the when the treasurer gets a payment that previously was $2 over, $2 under. She had to make a reimbursement, or she would have to attempt to collect it, and now it's being changed to $5. They're very few, very infrequent, and we would just encourage it. The $2 really wasn't worth trying to go after people for that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this resolution? I see no other requests. Please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 71.
I'm trying.
No, it worked.
There we go.
Thank you. That's 26 yes. That is unanimous. Thank you. Next is file 84.
Requiring any department of over 50 employees trending significantly and repeatedly over budget to seek approval prior to filling vacant staff positions and to provide fiscal reports to the County Board of Supervisors upon request.
Motion. Supervisor Lavelle, second Supervisor Chilson. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this resolution? Oh, sorry. Supervisor Coffey.
Thank you. My first question is a clarification question to ask Corp Counsel. And I guess that's the concern about whether it's legal for the county board to have authority to manage hiring.
Sure.
It is, okay. It is.
What the county board would be doing is approving the positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, is there further clarification?
Well, the language of the statute or the ordinance is that filling the position is denied by any of the above, the oversight committee may bring the position request to the county board for consideration. So you're filling a position, like, for consideration is. We can't hear you.
Yeah, we're having trouble, Tim.
You just got to move it towards you.
Sorry. I'll yell louder. You know, the resolution language is filling the position is denied by any of the above. The oversight committee may bring the position request for the county to the county board for consideration. Depends on how you interpret that language of consideration as to whether or not you're filling the position, you're eliminating the position, whatever you're doing with the position. The position, if it's created, certainly that's something that's within the purview of the county board, but the county board also oversees all of the various committees. So if there's a dispute, ultimately it could be the county board deciding whether or not that position is going to be filled or not.
Thank you. Supervisor Neiman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The county needs to support the work of its departments and its staff to determine policy and not to make day-to-day decisions for those hired because of their expertise to know what is needed and is most effective on a human and fiscal level. To add the proposed intervening approvals to the current process, to me, is superfluous and potentially burdensome. Restrictions that are requested on the staff in this resolution would hamper the progress and provision of services that are part of mitigation plans to address the root causes of the overages. I think filling or not filling positions is kind of a Band-Aid kind of action. I think what is needed is county support to search for more creative solutions in the Eau Claire community other than not filling vacancies of already approved positions. I think we'd be better served to improve communications between the departments and the county board committees, as well as the finance and budget committee. I would also take issue with the statement in the resolution that our number one responsibility is fiduciary oversight. Certainly that is important, but we are also responsible for providing cost-effective services. I guess the question for me remains, why is this addition needed when we already have a process in place.
Thank you. Supervisor Gatlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make an amendment or a motion to send this back to committees, specifically the Human Resources Committee and the Committee on Administration.
Is it a second, Supervisor Bates? This is a subsidiary motion and takes precedence, and it is debatable. So we will proceed to discussion of the motion to refer to committee before we go on with any other discussion. Is there anyone who wishes to address? Supervisor Pagonis, are you addressing the refer to committee?
I wasn't, but I will. I agree that it should be referred to both admin and to HR committee. I agree completely, because I think that they are, certainly the HR committee needs to be part of the decision-making process on this, and admin needs to be, I agree, needs to participate. I think we all need to be mindful in terms of taxpayer dollars. These are large departments, and I think that referring it to the committees is a very good idea.
Thank you. Supervisor Bates.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think that also this is the first reading of this to this body, so it seems to me referral is appropriate.
It's a resolution.
Oh, sorry. Clarification, it's a resolution.
Oh, excuse me. Working on it. It's still appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Anton.
I would encourage it to be a matter of interest to our administrator to put it in the organization effectiveness agenda, because, as was mentioned earlier, simply controlling by cutting off a position isn't really the best solution. Determining what we should be doing and how many people it takes to get it done is something that we're very admirably working on. I think that's where this one belongs. The second comment, 50 sounds arbitrary to me. There must be some background to that when it comes back to us. If we had a number like that, I'd like to see some basis for it.
Can't hear you.
I don't think the other members can hear you, but I want to clarify that right now we're speaking to the motion to refer to committee, not to the resolution itself.
One item in the referral to the committee would be to recognize that there is an alternative, namely the organization effectiveness effort that our administrator is undertaking, rather than simply cutting a position or allowing it to be added in. I think it belongs elsewhere.
Point of order.
I'm sorry, who's making the point of order?
I am.
Oh, Supervisor Pagonis, point of order?
Yes, I thought we were talking about referring to committee.
We are. I'm trying to clarify that.
Okay.
Thank you for the reminder. So can I assume, Supervisor Anton, that you've concluded? Okay. Supervisor Cronk.
Thank you. I had a couple questions on the main resolution, but I agree with referring it to committee, so thank you.
Thank you.
The committees.
Supervisor Wilkie.
I'd speak in favor of referral. You know, I'd like to get at this, recalling the fact that some of this was in our budget, and the board decided and asked and referred it to Budget and Finance and requested that it come back in resolution form and with a detailed fact sheet. That has been accomplished, but a referral would be in order. It certainly involves human resources, and very appropriate that it also be referred to administration. I always support as many folks looking at something and vetting it as detailed as possible. And particularly this one, because I think it's an important one that we get at. But this has been going on for months and months. The time that it will take for committees to take a look at it is fine and is a good plan. So I won't speak against referral.
Thank you. Supervisor Russell.
Thank you, Mr.
Chair, I just wanted to concur that I would like to see this referred back to the Human Resources Committee since it involves the hiring process, as there may be a lot of other questions that need to be answered and explored in the process. So I'm just concurring that it should be referred back to HR.
Thank you. Supervisor Beckfield.
I too would like to support Supervisor Gatlin's motion.
Okay,
To
thank
go
you.
back.
Supervisor DeLuca, I think you had your, or Supervisor Russell, I'm confusing the lights here.
DeLuca wants to speak.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question on which committees it's being referred back to. Because if I remember correctly, Supervisor Gatlin asked for Human Services and Budget and Finance, and Supervisor Pagonis asked for HR and Admin. So I just
Well, to
was wondering
clarify,
what committee.
this is not a referral back to committee. This is a referral to committee.
That's what I'm
And it's a
asking. Which
referral
committee? Which
To
committee?
Human Resources and Administration,
All right, thank you.
correct? Okay. Supervisor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. Since we're referring in the main motion to 3 large departments, would it be appropriate, since we're getting more feedback, and I agree, to also get the feedback from the 3 departments that will be affected? And because I'd like to know if their governing committees would find any issues with this. I know that's like basically the whole board, but I think it's pertinent. So could we get these other 3 committees, HR, sheriffs, and whatever the,
I
yeah.
believe it's Sheriff, Highways, and Human Services.
Yeah, I'd like their input and just have them report back by a certain date. That way we'll all at least know what we're talking about.
Oh, we're talking about departments. A moment, please.
Departments or the committees over the departments?
We're talking about departments. All right, so to clarify, if we were to do what you request, first of all, we'd have to do it by amending the motion. And if you wish to amend the motion, the referral would then include Human Services, Highways, and Sheriff.
Yeah.
Do you wish to make such an amendment?
Yes, I do. Yes.
We have an amendment. Is there a second to that amendment? Second by Supervisor Neiman. Is there any discussion of the amendment? I see no one making a request to speak. Therefore, I'm going to request that you vote on the amendment to add those 3.
But all you're voting on now is those 3 committees.
Yes, we're only voting on the amendment.
This as amended?
As amended, because that's what.
No, just the amendment.
No, we have to approve the amendment first. The amendment is adding the referral to those 3 committees.
Departments.
Departments, excuse me. Is that clear?
Just the departments. Just the departments.
Just the departments. Okay.
Departments, not the committees.
I'm not clear on what I'm voting on. I'm
Okay.
not going to vote until I understand this, please.
Okay, that's certainly a reasonable request.
Thank you.
The amendment is to add to the original motion referral to the Human Services. I'm sorry, not Human Services.
Yes.
Yeah, no, right. Human Services, Sheriff's Department, and Highways Department to refer to those.
So that's what we're voting on, adding those 3 to the original 2?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
No.
Yes.
To the original. They amended this, so you got to.
We're doing it. We're doing it.
Just the 3 departments, right? See, that's the.
We're doing the amendment first, adding those 3 to the original referral to committee.
Okay, you're voting on 5.
Right? Okay. Any other, I'm sorry.
And then the second.
Supervisor Steltis, did you have a?
Yeah, just, I too want to be sure. So we're voting on an amendment to an amendment, correct?
No.
Yes.
No, wait.
Well, there was.
Order here. This is an amendment to a motion.
Exactly.
The motion is a subsidiary motion. It is not an amendment, it's a subsidiary motion.
Well, wasn't the motion to amend?
No.
The motion to amend is adding the 3.
Well, the motion was to refer.
Right.
That's the subsidiary motion. That is not an amendment. It's a
Correct,
subsidiary
okay.
motion.
So we're voting on an amendment to the motion to refer.
Yes.
Got it.
Is that clear for everyone?
That should just be the amendment part.
Yes, yes, yes. We're voting just on the amendment, adding the 3 departments, as Supervisor Leary moved. Sorry? Supervisor Leary, did you?
Yeah, we needed it so we can vote. Yeah.
Okay. Supervisor Wilkie, did you wish to?
Well, I just got done saying that I support everybody and their mother taking a look at it. We're going to do that.
Yeah, when we're done, everybody.
I see no mothers with their lights
That's
lit.
the whole
so.
idea. Chair, do we need to confirm, oh, they already voted?
They're voting.
No matter how you decide to vote on this, it's going to still be there. So I like the idea that everybody and their mother is going to take a look at it and come back with their opinion. But let's get it done and get it to a vote.
Well, it's good that you say that because we're already voting on it. So. Sorry about that. That was my fault. I'm sorry. All right, we have
22 to 4.
We have 22 yes, 4 no. So the amendment passes. We're back to the main, to the subsidiary motion to refer to committee, which now is a referral to 5 entities.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
Can I call the motion?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
You can if you wish. What you're doing is requesting that the motion be voted on. Yes. I see no other requests to speak. Supervisors, please take in hand your keypads and vote on the motion as amended. We have one no, 25 yes. So the resolution is referred to those 5 entities.
Some guys do anything for attention.
Little order here. Little order here. Okay. The next item on our agenda is file 73.
To amend Section 4.14010B of the Code, daily juvenile detention rates established.
Motion. Supervisor Pagonis, second Supervisor Dunning. Supervisor Pagonis, did you wish to address this?
Yes, very briefly. So the fee adjustment came before Finance, and of course we approved it, and it's what you would see on page 27 of your packet. I want to point out, however, that this is a fee adjustment for non-county residents, and our county code for this particular fee section has 2 parts, one for in-county juveniles and one for out-of-county juveniles. This only addresses out-of-county. In-county juveniles, the rate is not changing or hasn't been changed, but we were also alerted that the Department of Human Services is not billing in-county juveniles. So the practice used to be that parents would get billed, and it was a collections issue. It was difficult. But the code is not currently being complied with. So I would strongly recommend that the Human Services Board address how they intend to handle that. We shouldn't be having county code on our books that we're ignoring, or in the alternative, if the Human Services wants to do more of an enterprise type of operation and they come up with some other way of handling it, that might be a good idea. But this is only addressing one section, and I think the other section also needs to be addressed. So this is just an alert to the Human Services Board that this should be handled, it should be taken care of.
Just as a point of clarification, so the file is brought forward specifies only that second, only the non,
Yes, it specifies out-of-county rates.
okay, thank you.
It says non-residents, and non-residents means out-of-county.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
It's,
And I'm assuming that the Human Services Committee members have noted the comment? Supervisor,
Wondering why that was brought forth at budget time.
I don't know the answer to that.
we didn't get it at budget time. This was sent to Finance and Budget after the budget, so I wouldn't have known about it.
Okay.
It wasn't until Finance and Budget had their meeting and Rob Fadness from the Department of Human Services was there, and we specifically asked those questions because I happened to read the ordinance before I went in. Just saying.
Okay, thank you.
The reason I asked the question is because there was a fiscal impact that put money in the budget with this change, and at the time of the budget, we didn't act on it.
I'm going to leave the discussion at that and assume that the Human Services
We'll look at it.
Committee will look at the Human Services Board will look at that. Thank you. Okay. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 73. Supervisor Bates. Thank you.
26 yes.
26 yes, it is unanimous. Thank you. The next item is file number 75.
This resolution adds required language that was omitted from two previously adopted ordinances regarding amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary maps for files number 1819-105 and 1819-116.
We're going to handle this as a resolution, not a change of ordinance. Therefore, we can vote on it tonight. So, motion on this? Supervisor Anderson, second Supervisor Gatlin. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Supervisor Gibson? You knew I was going to call on you, didn't you?
I was starting to wonder.
I could see you hiding back there.
Okay, this was, there was some languages that was inadvertently omitted from two previously adopted ordinances regarding the zoning district boundary maps. And what this does is adds that required language.
Thank you. Are there any questions, any discussion? Supervisors, please take in hand your keypads and vote on file 75. Supervisor Maury.
I did it once.
That is 26 yes, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item is file number 74.
Supporting participation in the 2020 U.S. Census Complete Count Committee.
Motion. Oh, Supervisor Jansen, second by Supervisor Lavelle. Sorry, many hands to pick from there. Supervisor Gibson.
Thank you. This resolution is just resolution so that Eau Claire County can support participation in the 2020 U.S. Census.
Thank you. Is there anyone who has question or discussion regarding this item? Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 74. Five yes, 1 no. The item passes. We have reached the end of our agenda. This meeting is adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715